Most people don't realize how much of their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making millions pulling details about you from public records and the internet, then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might just sell credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/hidden. Protect yourself now at aura.com/hidden.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
I'm Whitney Baker, coach, facilitator, meditation teacher, and writer. Electric Ideas is for women, especially mothers, who are done disappearing inside their responsibilities. If you're holding everything together but running on empty or feeling disconnected from your needs and desires, this is a place to come back to yourself. If you're ready to feel alive again in the messy middle of real life, you're in the right place. Let's spark something. Welcome back to Electric Ideas. I'm your host, Whitney Baker, and this is a Mini Jolt, a shorter episode where I share perspective and tools to help you feel alive and present to your own life, right in this beautiful yet messy middle and reality of motherhood. So you guys, right now I am in the process of writing a book, and the simplest way to tell you what the book is about is that it's about building a life, especially during peak motherhood years, from the inside out. It's taken more than a decade of my own transitions, my own work and reclamation, and the work I do with clients, becoming a certified coach, becoming a certified meditation teacher, interviewing more than 150 people on this show, for me to really see clearly the patterns that many modern mothers face, and to feel like I have enough concreteness on how to be of service to moms that I can put it in a book. This research and writing and reflection process for this project has really taken me back to my earlier days of motherhood. And I have to admit, I felt a little nostalgic this summer. You know, I see the moms riding by on their bikes with their, what feels like their little ducklings behind them, with the little kids following. And my girls are older now, so it's very easy to have that tinge of nostalgia for the younger years. But it's also really easy to romanticize and only remember the darling footy pajama parts of the younger kids' phase of motherhood. And there was a lot of meaning and fun for me during that phase of motherhood. I love being a mom, but there's also a lot of confusion and frustration and exhaustion. And I really feel that it took being on the other side of that and in a different chapter and way of being in life to see that time in my life clearly. So I want to take you with me back to that pivotal time in my life, into remembering how it actually felt, because I know a lot of you are navigating transitions and big questions with motherhood and identity and work. And I want to share a little tidbit of what actually finally helped me and how I've adapted that as a first step to help all of my clients now too. So back when I was in the early phases of motherhood, I had my little girls 14 months apart. At the time, I was working in a creative, need my brain to operate, always on pressure cooker environment at a marketing communications agency. I was working in Chicago's Hancock building. And before even entering that company, I'd gone through getting a master's degree in journalism. And I'd managed to endure the financial crisis that a lot of us at this generation kind of forget about, because now we've all gone through the pandemic. Needless to say, before I was in that role, before I had kids, there'd already been a fair amount of sweat and tears trying to navigate and build a career. And overall, I liked working. But with two kids under the age of two and working in a super fast paced industry, I started feeling like a human colander, just sieving energy in every direction. At the time, I felt a lot of conflict because it seemed like there was two identities out there. Neither one of them felt like me. There was the boss babe, working mom who's all in and knows that that's like a big part of her identity and something she's never going to separate from. And then there's the moms that were confident that they want to put their career on pause, either because that's what they always had wanted or because they were dying to quit their job and they didn't like it. And neither of those were my camps. Neither of those felt good for me. I felt called to contribute outside of my role of motherhood. I had a ton of energy to build and create things, but I also loved being a mother. So for a couple years, I tried everything to see if I could change my circumstances before I made a big change in my setup, which is something I work with my clients on too. I went from working in an agency from 5 days, then I negotiated 4 days. And then we're talking over the course of years, I finally negotiated 3 days. And at 3 days, I thought I'd achieve this mythical balance, but instead I was not able to be on the assignments I wanted at work. So the work really lost its potency and appeal. At the time, I had no boundaries, so I was trying to take quick calls at times during the day when I just fingers crossed that both of my girls would be taking a nap. So here I thought that I was going to have this holy grail moment where I was working part-time, still having, a meaningful professional role and also being able to open up more presence at home. But more than ever, I felt like I was just failing at both places, and it was a horrible feeling. So like many women, I hit a burnout point and I decided I had to quit this job. The thing is, I was so wound up in the energy of doing and forcing and keeping it all together that within a week of leaving my agency job, I was already pitching freelance. I was scared to death at the time of losing my footing in the professional world. I can look back now at that version of myself with a lot of compassion because I was in the middle of a transition that I didn't have any language for, that I didn't know how to understand or articulate. And it felt like I was told by society with the women's movement that all the doors were open to me as a mother and I could do it all. But I felt like somehow I was someone who couldn't. And it felt like a personal failure at the time. And I was so grateful that I had enough flexibility financially that I could even have choice to prioritize my family for a bit. But I also could not ignore the call that I wanted to contribute outside that role. And I was very careful to listen to that because even at that time in my life, I somehow knew that if I ignored that, I would become resentful. So I just want to take a minute and acknowledge how major these transitions are for mothers. These decisions are rarely black and white, and moms suffer in long stretches of silence. They agonize over what makes sense for them and their families. All of the variables are constantly changing because, our roles at work change, our roles at home change, the age of our kids change, our capacity changes if we're caring for an old one or healing from an injury or aging or going through hormonal shifts. So everything is always a moving target, and we're just trying to make a decision based on the facts at hand. But when we do make a change out of a role, especially a professional role, there's a lot of identity loss and it feels like grief. And I feel like when moms push pause on careers that just are not sustainable at a point in our life where we're a little bit more established. And that's why I think a lot of women I encounter are hit harder with the identity loss that's experienced during these transitions. A lot of modern mothers, as they're making choices of what stays and what goes, it feels like there's really big trade-offs, and it comes with a lot of mixed emotions and a lot of identity grief. And at the time when I was going through this, I had no idea about any of this. I had no language or understanding. It just felt like I was failing. So I'm proud that I can tell you many years later that after going through my own transitions and my own self reclamation process and years of research and coaching, and like I said, interviewing more than 150 experts via the Electric Ideas podcast, I can speak to this time in my life with a zoomed out lens and confidently tell you that our current generation of mothers is drowning. We were told we could do it all, both as mothers and smart, wise women called to share our gifts and enjoy ourselves beyond our role as mother. But these promises, which were well intended to open all the doors, actually penalized us in a lot of ways because there is a gap between what mothers have been promised and what is actually realistic, what one human possibly has capacity for. We've been told that we have a full menu of options and we get to choose from every category. Start with your career. Don't pass go without having a family. Everything will come together. You've got all this choice. But the reality is, most of today's mothers are barely eking by. So, what gives? That is a complex answer. But I will say that women in our generation are navigating double standards, both at home and work. They're feeling broken and exhausted by the mental and invisible labor storm we've created through modern intensive parenting. Most of us are riddled with shoulds based on expectations from society that we see a lot more now that many of our living experiences are so drenched with competing digital material. And speaking of that, we are under unprecedented demand and distraction due to this unchecked digital explosion age that we live in, both at work and at home as mothers. Unless we fiercely protect our time and our energy and our calendars and our hours, they are constantly up for grabs. And on top of all this, we're living in a society that has long seen care work, the important work of mothering and caring and providing, as something mothers just kind of neatly tuck into their days and inherently know how to do, instead of learned skills, even though it's totally worthy and rewarding, but hard work. Being a mother requires skill and labor, and there's a reason why, if we choose to work outside of the home in a paid capacity, we have to pay out the nose to have someone else provide care. I realize this is a lot to digest, but fundamentally, I just want you to know that if you feel like you are failing, I'm here to tell you society is not designed right now with you as a mother in mind. It's designed with work weeks that assumes someone is out there caring for the kids. And if you are working as a mother inside of the home and focusing on family right now, you're feeling similar pressures because not only has our world warped and devalued the role of motherhood to begin with, but we're also living in what researchers call the intensive parenting era, which means that moms are more likely feeling pressured to do more, to spend more time, money, energy, to push, to create magic for, to do so much to manage the lives of their children. And some of my ambitious clients who have paused work to focus on motherhood sometimes find themselves almost punishing themselves with this expectation of motherhood because they have so much energy and that's how they are channeling it. So regardless of where you are from a polarizing work from home, work outside of the home, labeling ourselves with these work titles can be polarizing. And I think that we're all working in a system that needs to be changed. If you look in the big picture of history, women have not even had these opportunities that we have today for that many years. So it's not shocking that society hasn't quite caught up with its promises. We can't change societal circumstances overnight, and we can't change self-imposed guilt overnight. A lot of these things many of us have absorbed, but we can stop looking outwards at all the expectations and the to-dos, the pressure to perform. We can stop looking sideways at how other women seemingly have it more together. And instead, we can do what I will be writing about and expanding on in my forthcoming book. We can look inward instead. We can have the courage to live a life from the inside out. This means reconnecting with your essence and your aliveness and being brave enough to cultivate a life within motherhood that still feels authentic, that has room to stretch and shift and expand and snap back without tons of self-judgment. I hope you can tell how passionate I'm getting about these topics because part of my hope and my mission is to help mothers understand these transitions and feel less isolated trying to navigate these transitions alone. I'll also say that one of the things that surprised me the most when I quit my job is that I thought things would magically feel peachy. And overall, some things were better. Not having deadlines hovering at the forefront of my mind all the time was great for my stress level. But when our brains and our bodies are trained in hypervigilant go mode, and even if we know in our hearts that we love being mothers and we don't want to rush past the time with our kids, and we don't want to be answering emails when we're trying to hang out with our family or whatever, we become so accustomed to having our nervous systems hijacked and to routinely abandoning ourselves and overriding ourselves that it is a process and a practice to step into more of a feeling of inhabiting our lives versus just managing it, to remembering that we have more choice than we think, to move from a sense of intention, from choice, from integrity versus just flailing and urgency. I have learned through my own experience and by witnessing so many competent women try to navigate all these decisions in their motherhood journey that self-abandonment isn't always a scheduling problem. It's not always like, oh, when I just have time, oh, I don't have time. That's the biggest excuse why people don't do the work I do and don't work with me is, oh, I just don't know where I'd fit it in. I don't have time. I'm here to tell you again, self-abandonment isn't just a scheduling problem. It's an absorbed habit. That is one of the reasons why the week after, like I mentioned, when I quit my formal job, I put so much pressure on myself to start freelancing. Sure, I had a bit more time for myself. It was a little bit of a blur, but if I had to guess, I probably also immediately started organizing the playroom and being hard on myself that it was such a disaster. I can make light of that version of myself now. And listen, she still creeps back into the scene sometimes, even though I've done so much self-awareness work. But whenever I start to work with a new coaching client or lead a women's workshop, one of the first steps I teach is how to actually slow down, slow your roll. Not for this slowing down for being slow's sake, even though I know slow living is a whole thing right now. I like to build things and I like seeing women out there in every room shining in their brilliance if that's what they feel called for. So it's not slowing down just to chill. It's slowing down so you can stop moving from that place of urgency and feeling like life is just happening and out of control. And you can start listening to yourself. You can start feeling like you have clarity and agency and that you are designing your days and you are choosing an intentional instead of frantic. The sooner you learn to zoom out from your day-to-day experience and see it with less emotion, more like a third-party viewer, the sooner you will be able to build a life that feels like it really honors you. It's always important for me that I bring insight and philosophy into what's tangible, both on these shows and when I'm doing deeper one-on-one work with clients. So I want to ground you in what I'm talking with a quick practice that you can try today if you are someone who is ready to slow down, feel self-connected and on purpose, regardless of where you are in your motherhood journey. So I call this the what do I need buffer. And it's the easiest practice ever. And I feel like it's good timing because I know some of you are going to be going through the back to school transition and it can be stressful. So all you do is Monday through Friday, you pick a couple times during the week between the hours of 1 and 4. That's my unofficial knowing time when busy moms like you are most likely to be hitting a wall. I don't care if you're in some gray area that most of the women I know navigating this promised all are in. Don't just say, I'm going to do it. Pick a time, put it on your calendar, and don't commit to anything during that time. When you get to that time in your day, all you're going to do is pause and you're going to ask yourself, What do I want right now? What do I need right now? Pause and listen until something comes up. Don't scroll your phone, just sit in silence. Maybe you need to stretch. Maybe you need to go outside for some sun. Maybe you need some water. Maybe you need to read a few pages of a magazine or call a friend. And maybe you have no idea and nothing comes up and you just sit there, and that's okay too. This is a really small practice on purpose. Yes, it is a self-care practice, but the work I do with women goes so much deeper than kind of this bandied about self-care term that I'm reluctant to use that word, to be honest. This is a starting point habit of consulting with yourself into your day to day, of not overriding yourself and losing yourself throughout your days. This is a place for you to start slowly rebuilding self-connection, and then it becomes like a muscle. You can eventually leverage this self-connection for bigger life decisions or to get in touch with your deeper callings and desires, which go way beyond, I need a glass of water. But it's okay to start there. It's not always convenient for women to hear, but you don't go from years of being responsive to everyone else's needs to suddenly prioritizing yourself. You have to begin first by creating enough margin in your days to notice yourself. And it's really helpful to begin with some sort of a listening practice. That's why this is always a first stop when I'm working with one-on-one clients. It never looks the same because it's really tailored to individual lives and capacity and what type of practices people are drawn to. But there's always an effort to learn how to pause. That's the first stop. And eventually this work leads into deeper questions of what do I want my life to feel like right now? What am I doing? What are my priorities? Where am I leaking my energy to things that really are not in alignment with my highest good and the highest good of all? What a lot of my clients find is that they don't really think of someone who has totally abandoned herself. Maybe that's just too strong a word, but I like that word because it's the best word I found to describe this. It probably looks more ordinary than what you think. So I hope you can try out that what do I need buffer in the coming weeks and see how it goes. In closing, I just want to share a couple key takeaways to help capture this conversation for you. One, many women who are mothers feel like they are failing in a world where we were promised by society that every door was open, that we could have it all. But society has largely overlooked the lived experience of mothers and has put us in a position where we're expected to override ourselves in order for things to keep chugging in workplaces and homes. And I think it's going to take mothers who are trying to navigate this all inside these circumstances to figure out how to change it and make it better for our nieces and our daughters. Secondly, motherhood trains women to become incredibly good at protecting everyone else's time, energy, and needs, and also incredibly practiced at breaking the promises they make to themselves. Oftentimes, you become the most negotiable part of your own life the moment you become a mother. And the problem with all of this is that self-abandonment completely disconnects you from your spark, your aliveness, your you-ness. And when you're disconnected from that, it's hard for anything to feel right and good and settled. So instead of looking everywhere and scattering your energy around, the practice is to slow down, come back to your center, come back to your spark, and ripple your contribution and your love and your presence from that nourished place. If you want a place to start with this work, I created a simple, easy program called 5 Days to Less Stress, More Satisfaction, because I want to help women slow down, self-connect, and step into joy, intention, and presence right in the messy middle of motherhood. It's a series of self-guided 5 inner knowing lessons that will help you move from a more grounded, intentional energy instead of from whiplash, flailing around energy of the world and outside demands. This work and the deeper work I do with coaching doesn't necessarily change your circumstances, but it will wildly alter the way you experience your days, your weeks, and ultimately your life. You can find 5 days to less stress, more satisfaction linked in the show notes. It's just $44 because I want it to be such a no-brainer for women to access. If you have any trouble finding the link, you can just message me on Instagram at @WhitneyWoman and I'll route it right to you. All right, coming to a close, I always like to end my episodes with an opportunity for reflection. So ask yourself this: where in my life have I gotten used to treating myself as negotiable? I hope this conversation illuminated something for you, invited you into some self-compassion, some self-awareness, and also left you with a hands-on practice you can try right away and an opportunity for reflection. If you have any questions or feedback, or you just want to say hi, I'd really like to hear from you. I love hearing from the Electric Ideas community and what's resonating with you, so I know what to share and what experts to bring onto the show and where to focus my attention so I can continue to be of service. So drop me a line anytime on Instagram. Again, you can find me there at @WhitneyWoman. Hope you have an inspired day. I'm so glad you joined me today. If you're looking for more, feel free to connect with me on Instagram at @WhitneyWoman. And if you enjoyed the show, I invite you to support me by leaving a review or sharing it with a friend. Hope you have an inspired day.
When you need to send the perfect rose bouquet, only one brand can say they've been the floral authority for 50 years. 1-800-Flowers. Why should you trust 1-800-Flowers? They hand-select every stem to ensure top quality. And with nationwide delivery, smiles and satisfaction are 100% guaranteed. And right now, when you order a dozen multicolored roses, we'll double it at no extra cost. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Order today at 1-800-Flowers.com/podcast. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/podcast.
Fall's a time to plan ahead and ensure your brand shows up in ways that matter. 4imprint's promotional products work as hard as you do and make a lasting impression. From quality apparel, including exclusive brands, to drinkware, tech, and totes, they've got thousands of options to fit your brand and budget. Plus, you get free samples, expert help, and their 360-degree guarantee. So you'll be 4imprint certain everything shows up just right on time. Explore more at 4imprint.com.
4imprint.